because of that. Objectivism is objectively horrible. Sorry. Yeah, that's what objectivism is, kind of. And it's just capitalism. The economic system is just capitalism. I think it's free market, probably less state. Think libertarian, think anarcho-capitalist, think in between that kind of a little bit. And it's more of a philosophy than anything else, not really a political ideology necessarily. I don't know if she actually had a system that was differing at all from now normal libertarian systems, which are just usually constitutional federal republics that are extraordinarily reduced in what they can do. Anarcho-primitivism. So this is something that's actually pretty interesting, and I think this is an interesting concept to cover, because anarcho-primitivism is a commonly memed on ideology, rightfully so. It's somewhat reactionary in nature, but every ideology has its very interesting quirks and whatnot. Anarcho-primitivism tends to refer to an ideology that it does differ from Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not an anarcho-primitivist. He was a neo-Luddite, which essentially means he wanted to get rid of industry and large-scale industry. He criticized anarcho-primitivists who want to go back to a more primitive time because he believed it was a stupid fucking concept. Although he didn't really apply the same logic, it had some kind of cognitive dissonance with regards to his own philosophy. And neo-Luddism is extraordinarily advocates for violence to get to this point and to destroy industry, and believes the earth is being destroyed by capitalism, which is true. He has some interesting critiques on leftism as well. To get into, I'm obviously stalling here to see if I can get my notes up on this so I'm not just talking out of my ass. Anarcho-syndicalism, liberal conservatives, anarcho-capitalism, conservative, socialism, anarcho-conservatism, social liberalism, anarcho 82 to 83. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. They want to return to a non-civilized way of life. They support the deindustrialization and the abolition of the division of labor and specialization. They want the embedment of large-scale organization. They criticize the origins and process of the industrial evolution and industrial society. They believe the shift from hunter-gatherer to agricultural subsistence during the Neolithic Revolution was a mistake. They believe that the Neolithic Revolution with some social They believe that the Neolithic Revolution came with a social alienation, social stratification, and coercion of individuals. They focus on creating a feral state through rewilding. And they are anti-authoritarian. They strive for egalitarian relationships. They wish to return to nomadic groups. They wish to be hunter-gatherers. They are hunter-gatherers. Hard to have successful land. Don't know what the fuck I wrote there. Abolition of labor or specialization and abandonment of large-scale organization technology. Advocates simple living and self-sufficiency among natural surroundings in resistance to the advancement of industrial civilization. They believe in vegetarianism, free love, nudism, and an ecological worldview in small eco-villages. What is often not mentioned necessarily is that this ideology would lead to massive death. Yeah. So, as well as libertarian socialism, because both would have to deindustrialize rapidly or slowly, and would cause inevitably either birth rates to fall significantly or death rates to fall significantly, which actually have both been used, or at least the falling of death rates has been used to justify the fact that there's been a genocide in an area. To get more specific with that, for example, the Cultural Revolution, I think, the famine, the Great Famine of the 1936, I think, in China. One of the methodologies that American American researchers used was the fact that the birth rate dropped off due to large-scale agricultural issues, and they used that to justify a abhorrently large amount of deaths when there was not as many. You can look that up. It is entirely true. I mean, I guess maybe you're not going to find that, but postmodernism, you can look at that. I'm not really interested in it. Market socialism. So, I don't want to go into market socialism right now. I can later, at a later date. I want to go into that in a much more informative manner than this. Right now, I'm just kind of overviewing this, and I'm giving him a better analysis of some of the things. So let's go into anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism, because they are, in fact, different. Actually, let's see what he has to say about them, and then I will say similar things, I guess, because I actually have to look for some stuff as well. And column 63.
Anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism. Okay, at this point, we're going to arrive at a problem. And the problem is that there are like 27 near identical ideologies that begin with anarcho, and I feel like arguing over the differences between them, every breath you spend on describing differences between them is a breath that you could spend fighting for the working class. But as I understand it,
When has he done that?
anarcho-syndicalism
What?
and anarcho-communism are not mutually exclusive. Anarcho-communism is just you use anarchist methods of organization and arrangement and political activism to achieve a communist society. And anarcho syndicalism means you attempt to achieve an anarchist society through a syndicalist framework. And syndicates are basically just mega unions. So you would argue then that the path towards anarchism for an anarcho syndicalist would be that you basically have like unions, and those unions like band together into like broader trade unions and like entire industry unions, and that they become viable political organizations in and of themselves, and that's through these like big political constructs that are designed to represent the interests of the workers that you achieve anarchism.
You would think, actually, you wouldn't think. It's reasonable to assume he would know what he's talking about, and he does. This is correct. Anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism, the way he describes it, is correct. I have my contentions with them. I'll go into depth with them a little bit here, but because I think it is important. I think it's a little bit reductive to say it's not important. I think it's important to know these sort of things, maybe. So anarcho-communism believe in no central system of governments. They believe in small democratic communities. Everyone is looked after within the community. They believe in wealth redistribution. They believe that everyone is on the same level. Everybody, all the workers should own the means of production. They believe in politics on okay. They believe in the abolition of the state, capitalism, wage labor, and social hierarchy. However, that is impossible. Obviously, we've talked about that before when we referred to Engels' critiques on anti-authoritarians. Common ownership of the means of production. Direct democracy as well as a network of worker councils with production and consumption based on from each according to his own, and each according to his ability to each according to his own. Work would be carried out due to social motives rather than for wages, and consumer goods would be available to all according to their needs. Communes of 20 households, that's just kind of an arbitrary number. It obviously could be larger. Representative which does the same thing with the riches of the commune at a district level. Democracy is two wolves and lamb. I don't know what the fuck I was writing here. I don't know what the fuck I went on about that. Last few sentences, just entirely ignore. It's based on human cooperation and solidarity, local direct democracy, the ownership of the wealth produced, and economic equality. Small scale worker ownership was an important part of that the economy. Reject the social Darwinist view that humans are winners in the struggle for existence because they're self-seeking and competitive. So yeah, they don't believe in individualism, supposedly. Humans are naturally empathetic, sociable, and cooperative, and it is, don't know what that word is, characteristics that account for the long-term survival of humankind. People are capable of peaceful and harmonious self-government, and therefore do not need to be ruled from above or subjected to state control. Mutual aid can create a decentralized society of communities founded on progress, social solidarity, and voluntary participation. Unfortunately, the problem with both of these ideologies is that they have no significant methods of which to oppose anarcho-capitalists or any of those others which would therein exploit them immediately after they are able to create this anarchist utopia. The problem being that if you are decentralized and are not actively fighting reactionary elements in your society from a centralized authority, you are not doing it effectively. You cannot do it in a decentralized manner because it is simply inefficient. Just think about it for 5 fucking seconds and you'll probably get Why? What if Hitler exists? Hitler would exist. Hitler exists, bam, boom, centralized. All of a sudden, you have a centralized authority versus multiple uncentralized authorities. It could go well. You could have a similar a similar system to what happened in Vietnam. Although even Vietnam had a central authority, if you will, in the way of Ho Chi Minh, and the tactics they used were supported by the Soviet Union and all other stuff. So even then, they had some sort of central authority to fight it. So there's no significant examples of this ever working. In fact, there's only examples of this not working. For example, also libertarian socialism as a concept covers in both of these ideologies. Anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism are both ideologies that are representative within the larger, broader concept of libertarian socialism. Think of it as a classification of a certain kind of ideology. You could consider it of the libertarian left, if that is what you want to call it, but most of those ideologies could be considered, to some extent or another, libertarian socialists. So the green little fucking thing, anybody in the little green box, would be considered libertarian socialist to some extent or another, unless you are in a very, very modern, or not modern, moderate place on the libertarian left, in which case you'd probably be a social democrat or something of that nature. So let's cover the next issue where she goes over chauvinist. I don't feel like I need to cover that necessarily. Maybe I will in a later video. Global North and Global South. Obviously, I feel like it's obvious. Command economy. I don't know what he means by command economy. He means centrally planned economy. Why the fuck does it go in full screen, dude? I don't want it in full screen. If this doesn't play, I'll explain planned economy. This is going to be so long, though. This planned economy segment is going to be really long if I explain this. I don't have a problem with it, and I will do it. But I would rather him load, and I can give my rebuttal in here.
Correctly. What is a command economy? A command economy is any type of economy where the production and distribution of commodities is determined by central planning. That is to say, rather than there being some kind of market system to determine where these resources need to go, instead it's like there's a central group of people or like an AI or something which decides or determines what needs to be produced and where it needs to go. Can you explain the difference between federalism and...
What the fuck? Why is he so reductive of it? Okay, he was technically correct. Technically correct, yes. Let me get my tanky notes out here. Let me get my central planning notes for dummies-ish. So, how would a socialist economy look like? It would involve planning, obviously. Capitalist economies are organized by interaction of prices and market. A socialist economy would be concisely regulated in accordance with a settled plan. That is Marx right there. That is quoting Marx. How has such a plan been conceived by socialists? One camp of socialists placed more interest in technology, computers, sort of cyber socialism. Digital socialists see computers as the key to running a planned economy. They focus on algorithms and that sort of thing. They design software that can take in information on consumer preferences on goods as well as the industrial production of agriculture. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Wait, sorry. I just realized this is going to a different video than my Hakeem. Maybe I'll do a different, maybe I'll edit the Hakeem video down if I want to. They design software, there have been a number of experiments along these lines. In the Soviet Union, a Soviet mathematician, Victor Glossfus? Victor, a nationwide computer network to help planners. He proposed a nationwide computer network to help planners allocate resources. The old attempts went to shit in coups. That's the Pinochet era, that sort of thing. I'll go into central planning at a different time, at a different stage. Just know it's based, red-pilled, and it works. Just don't listen to anybody who says ECP. They're dumb. Federalism and confederalism. I can explain this pretty easily, I think. So let me just get my other notebooks out because I don't want to speak out of my asshole. But confederalism, actually, I can probably explain democratic confederalism, which is actually a system that exists today. No, I think maybe I know it existed at one point or another. Let me see. So he wants to go about federalism and confederalism. I know I have these. Da 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 da. Ba da da da. Let's put on some music. Distributism. It was right in front of my face. It was right in front of my face as well. That's unfortunate. So, federalism and confederalism. Federalism is on 92 to 93. Also, these are all written notes, so you would have no idea how to read these. I will, however, be making a Google Doc on these sort of things. So I guess I will technically be able to release this technically to the public. So federalism combines multiple regional governments into one central government, that is state, local, and then national government. Federal government is inherently democratic in order to share powers between different governments. So there's things that the state government does, there's things that the local government does, there's things that the national government does. They are restricted in their abilities to some extent or another by the other branches. An asymmetrical federation, which is an interesting concept, in a example would be Canada. An asymmetrical federation is a federation of different constituent states. Federations, restarting that. An asymmetrical federation. I just put asymmetrical federalism. Asymmetrical federalism, basically, is a federation of different constituent states possessing different constituent states, and different constituent states possess different. Wow, I wrote this wrong. So, essentially, sorry. Oh my God, dude, I'm gonna cut this part out. An asymmetrical federation is a federation of different constituent states that possess different powers. The federal constitution and all states and federation have the same formal status, however, have different powers. So Quebec has different powers than Newfoundland and that sort of stuff. It's weird. It's a really weird system. It's hard to explain and it's odd. So to explain a symmetric federalist system. Good example is the United States. Federal system of government in which each constituent state to the federation possesses equal power and no distinction is made between constituent states. So different entities like Quebec and the other ones, Ottawas, and that sort of shit, different states, technically, kind of. And America, the states are inside and they're all united under the United States, kind of. Yeah, no, they are. Sorry. No. The asymmetrical federation is one that's harder to explain. Confederalism, however, is a little different concept, and I will go over that when I find the paper, 94, 24, 24, 24, 24. Confederalism is a union of sovereign groups or states for the purposes of common action, usually created by a treaty. A confederation of states tend to be established for dealing with critical issues, such as defense, foreign relations, internal trade, or currency with the general government. The general / central government provides support for the allies for all of its members. And broadly speaking, it is somewhat of different states. A good example, not a horrible example actually, is the Confederation of the United States or something. The Confederate States of America. Yeah, the South. When they broke off was the CSA, and they had a horrible federation that was bad at trade and was shit and had no industry basically at all. So, that's a confederation and a federation. Don't know what Vaush was going to say, and I really don't want to know. So let me just get some tunes on for us. Here I will play, Can't Take Your Eyes Off You. That's a good song. And then we'll play, maybe this playlist. Actually, we'll play this playlist right now, actually. Because this is a good playlist. So, we'll go over the rest of this. Confederalism versus... So, feminism. Not going to explain that. Zionism. I'm sure he does an okay job at that. Paleo. What's that? Is he talking about paleoconservatism? Is he talking about paleoconservatism?
What does paleo mean before other ideologies? I think paleo generally is just when people use paleo, I mean it means old. That's what the term technically means. But usually when I see it used like as a political prefix, I don't think it always means that. I think basically paleo, the only time I see paleo used is paleoconservative, and I think it means like super tradcon basically.
Well, no, they're pretty much just trad conservative, within an actual framework, because traditional conservatism is not really a framework. If it's in America, it tends to be in that framework, which tends to manifest itself. The idea of traditional conservatism manifests itself most prominently in the idea of paleoconservatism. So, I don't know. Socialism with Chinese characteristics, I'm not going to go over that right now. That's something for a much larger time, much more other issues, other time, another time, maybe, perhaps.
Globalism is an economic and political philosophy that's reliant, or at least like an advocate for, like international cooperation, free trade, global integration, and like top-level transnational governments like the United Nations or the EU. Globalists tend to...
Also, by the way, the EU is an example of a federation. So, as well as the African Federation, I think that was formed with regarding trade recently. The term leftist. So let's go into the term leftist. So, how I would define leftism is, broadly speaking, anti-liberal ideologies, I would say, are the only ones that really truly qualify as leftist. But obviously, this guy exists. Vaush exists.
Advocate for those.
Sockdems exist. Unfortunately, I would not consider Sockdem a leftist. I consider Sockdem a liberal, because they advocate for a liberal democratic format within a social welfare state that's supposedly informed by, quote, socialist theory, which is an entire, misdirection. It's not actually informed by socialist theory. The difference between social liberalism, by the way, and social democracy is the fact that social democracy, in and of itself, advocates for supposedly socialist theory, or maybe what they're referring to is just copying the fucking Nordic model, or trying to do that, which is not necessarily possible. Which is not possible, really, because it's very specific. Obviously, it's the fucking Nordic model, not the fucking American model, or the fucking Venezuela model. I think Venezuela could probably do it if they didn't have the economic sanctions, but even then, it would be negative. Social liberalism advocates for wider social welfare policies as well, but the problem, or the difference, is that they advocate for capitalistic policies, but they also advocate for intervention on behalf of the social well-being of the people. Therefore, they're basically just liberals who are socially liberal, but also that can be, if you want to go more into the social liberal term in itself, which isn't really an ideology, it's more a way of describing a specific type of liberal. So I would consider social democrats to be right outside of liberalism, but still related, very much related. Leftist, race realist, racists, cucks, they tend to do eugenic stuff. Intersectionality, don't feel like I need to go into that. Gender abolitionism, don't feel like I need to go into that. Mutualism, okay, I am extraordinarily educated on mutualism. I was a mutualist for quite a time, actually. I was an anarchist for quite a time. And if I have to say that one of my favorite times as being an anarchist was, in fact, during my mutualist days, because it was so fun to debate people as a mutualist. And it is interesting as a concept. I have to say I am fascinated by ideologies, despite my fact that I am anti-anarchist because I am a Marxist-Leninist. I do respect certain ideologies and certain people who create those ideologies. I respect Proudhon as a theoretical contributor. I don't know how applicable his ideas are to today's society and today's world. They really aren't. But I will say that mutualism is a fantastic idea. Kind of. Although the free trade stuff is a little bit weird. It's almost like anarcho-capitalism but friendly, but also not really, because it's significant. It presents itself as a socialist ideology. Let me see if I can just find mutualism here. Actually, I think I know that mutualism is in this one. I think. Obviously, you can tell I used to be an anarchist. So mutualism, let me explain mutualism for you. Mutualism advocates for a socialist system based on a free market economy. They believe in the introduction of a mutual credit bank, and they believe in the ownership of the means of production by either the workers collectively or some other method. They are economically left-wing, pro-market, anarchist, and culturally they vary. So they believe in the representation of trade by equal amounts of labor in the free market. They do believe, and I believe, in the labor theory of value. They are in strong favor of individual liberty and can be seen as the unifying ideology between the social individualists and the social and market schools of anarchist thought. They reject traditional currency instead of proposing an alternative system based upon labor notes, which is a similar concept to one that I think Japanese Marxist, I think it was Japanese MLs, Japanese communists or socialists, I think they're Marxists, either way, advocated for. So it was a mix of socialism and a market economy to varying degrees of success. People voluntarily be banding together for the common purpose of mutual assistance. A social system based on the principles of equal freedom, reciprocity, I can't say that word, sovereignty of the individual over himself, their affairs, and products, realized through individual initiative, free contract, cooperation, voluntary association for defense against the invasive, and for the protection, liberty, and property of the non-invasive. People building society on grassroots organization for voluntary cooperation and mutual aid instead of waiting for the revolution. Emphasis is on building within the existing society, avoiding confrontation with the state when it is unnecessary. A mutualist, they believe, to get to a mutualist state, they believe a mutualist economy growing within a statist economy or within a statist society until mutualism eventually eclipses the statist economy, thus having more power, thus naturally dissolving the state. It's an interesting concept, one that, however, does not work in practice. Political beliefs will be abolished through the economy. You see why I kind of drifted away from this. Any distinction between public and private would be withered away. The emancipation through voluntary organization of labor, capitalism hides its exploitative character behind a face of neutral laws, and that's one of their beliefs. They believe in mutual credit to assist anyone. They believe in a mutual credit. Let's go into the mutual credit bank a little bit. So mutual credit is anyone can access credit to an extent to which they are trusted to repay that credit. They oppose to individuals receiving income through investment in rent under capitalist social relations. They endorse collective ownership and private property. I don't think they don't endorse private property as a means of production, however. They believe in self-governing producers. They reject profiteering and exploitation. Instead, they believe in exchanging goods and services through mutually beneficial economic contracts. They oppose capitalism and large-scale ownership of they oppose capitalism and large-scale property ownership. Obviously, that is like if you own a fuck ton of property and you don't use it, they will expropriate it. Fuck me. They allow for small-scale private property ownership based on the use and possession. They offer a positive view on human nature that claims people. Don't know why I didn't finish that sentence. I didn't finish that sentence for some reason. Under mutualism, people would be able to take responsibility for their own lives and interact through contracts regulating the exchange of goods. Contracts could not be made under duress or conditions which would be considered to be involuntary. Workers would receive the true value of what they produce based on the labor time involved. So he did believe in labor theory of value, Proudhon, I'm pretty sure, or that maybe came later in a different mutualist theorist. Mutualist economic organization so basically their entire thing kind of is mutualist economic reorganization would make the state redundant, thus dissolving the state. It's an interesting concept, and it's one that seems to be cool, kind of, I guess. Their social system, people would be bound together in small communities or associations by mutually beneficial contracts regulating economic and social relations. Only their family, patriarchal and hierarchical, would not be covered by such contracts, thus those would be decided obviously within those sort of things. These communities would show moral respect for individuality and would be based upon possession to ensure producers, one, are entitled to the fruits of their labor, two, have the necessary means land or tools for their work. People would possess private property so long as they were not exploiting or mistreating others. Society would be regarded as a free association between autonomous producers, thus providing a more just system because it upholds the principles of equality and freedom of contract. The state is they believe that the state is oppressive and should be abolished, removed peacefully through democratic processes or obviously through mutualist ideas as the mutualist economy becomes more popular than the regular economy. So contracts would replace government and oppose all forms of authority. Mutualist communities would form a federation form a federation and send delegates to coordinating councils. This satisfies a genuine need with small, productive, independent associations of workers and systems of mutually beneficial exchange based on contracts freely entered into by individuals and associations. Non-profit national banks would make a credit available to the association and individuals to start businesses. Products could also be exchanged for credit notes guaranteed by the bank. However, one of the biggest problems with this is if you didn't catch on, how do you do that without a state? How? How do you do it without a state? How do you do any of that without a state? Much less create contracts off of mutually beneficial order, because someone's gonna fuck you over eventually, and basically then it would turn into anarcho-capitalism probably, inevitably, if that did happen, if the system would ever were possible. That's more than likely the route it would follow, and then probably maybe revolution. I don't know, but yeah. It's an interesting concept, and I'm sure he does not explain it as in depth as I did. Let's see if he does. Actually, I'm very genuinely curious on how badly he explains mutualism. Maybe he actually knows what he's talking about. I don't know.
What about mutualism? Mutualism is I'm pretty sure this is an anarchist economic system, or it's one that's heavily associated with anarchists historically.
Yeah, Proudhon.
And it's one that's I think it's very, very similar to anarcho-syndicalism.
No.
In that it's the idea that you market anarchism. Yeah. It's the
Well, it's
idea
not market
that
anarchism.
It's through the economic
It's not market
production,
anarchism.
the systems. That
No. Market anarchism is not necessarily mutualism. Although you could say it's a very similar system, and technically it is market anarchism, kind of. Although it is still technically socialist, or it's considered socialist by a majority of its proponents. So I won't make the distinction that it's market anarchist. It is anarchist. It does advocate for a market economy, and it is actually, I gotta make this distinction. You can actually see within Proudhon's work how his ideology, or Proudhonism, as it's often called by people who know where mutualism came from, that mutualism, to some extent or another, came out of liberal ideas. You can tell by the way it's framed. Mutual contract, individual liberty, individualism, talking about that a lot, talking about anarchist thought a lot, anarchist thought tending to have a lot to do with anarchism, and that sort of philosophy. It's interesting to some extent, I guess, but obviously he didn't go in depth with it, I don't think, so let me continue with this before I lambast him any further.
You use those systems, you leverage them in a way to achieve equality and liberation for the working class, but you do so while maintaining the market characteristics of our society. Now keep in mind,
But through like genuine...
capitalism isn't just markets. Markets have been around forever.
But the problem is that
markets have been
capitalism
around
and
for as long
markets
as human
have the
beings.
same issues. Markets don't actually allocate resources properly based off of social needs and wants. It bases them off of productivity, which they define as market economic rationality, which they then define as profit, basically. Instead of the maximization of human need, which would be probably the most optimal system for human society, which you would assume would be the go-to in this case, but unfortunately it is not, because who knows? Who knows, actually? No one, not me, that's for fucking sure. Populism. So, let's continue with mutualism. I want to actually see what he says. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
Things have been smart enough to tally debts on one another. I mean, this is a very, 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 very old idea. people have dug up like ancient stone coins from a billion years ago that people were using to keep track of this and that. And markets have been around forever. Okay, the Greeks had markets. Oh, way back before that too. Way back before that. Markets have always been around. So the existence of a market doesn't mean capitalism. And my argument is this is just whatever procures the best outcomes thing. If a market ends up being a system that procures the most human freedom, then that's what we defend.
No. No. What? No, markets don't do that. What is he on about, dude? What is he on about? He didn't even explain mutualism thoroughly. He does not read Proudhon. That's for fucking sure. Fucking moron, dude. He's right that markets can be technically used internally within a social structure, but I don't think he knows about neoclassical socialism or Oscar Lane, so I doubt it's what he's referring to. Sorry, I doubt that's what he's referring to when he says markets can be used. So no, they cannot be used properly without being inherently or inherently solving, not solving, causing the problems of which are associated with markets today.
Decommodification ends up achieving the same, then that's what we should defend. In my opinion, I think there are ways to responsibly organize and wield market-based systems in a post-capitalist society.
There aren't.
Though to get into the details of that, we would have to spend 30 minutes and I would have to Google some things. So let's...
Why would you have to Google things? Make notes. Get yourself a notebook. If you're watching this, Vaush, which you won't be. Actually, I'll speak to the audience here. Get a notebook. Get yourself some sources. If you don't have resources, go on my Discord. I will give you many. Okay, give you 1,000 sources. Also, if you want to look on Discord, look for the Communist Library. I don't know if they're on Discord, but the Communist Library, which is a Discord server that has a incredible, huge collection of so much fantastic work, like the best, the awesomest, the bestest, the goodest stuffs. Okay, the goodest stuffs. If this isn't recording, I'm gonna be pissed. Fantastic. Oh, so populism. So before he goes into this, I guess I will order you interrupt him before he gets to this. So populism. Let's go into populism. 30, page number 30. So there's different kinds of populism, by the way. There's economic populism, social populism, and I think there is another one. Let's see. Social populism, national populism. National populism obviously tends to be more nationalistic. Tends to be, you're going to benefit your country in this way or this way, that way. Economic populism tends to be associated with left-wing beliefs. A good example of an economic populist would actually be Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is an economic populist and a social democrat. Not a democratic socialist, as he so claims. Oftentimes. Which is wrong. He's a sock them. Social populists tend to be liberals, kind of that stuff. Social liberals, it doesn't really matter. But basically, populism is appealing to the masses in their sensibilities. They believe that what the masses want is what the masses get. Consider them to be extraordinarily charismatic individuals who kind of just replicate what they see in their societies or their, that sort of stuff. So that's what populism is. They are represented by the people, for the people kind of motto, that sort of stuff. So let's go into, I guess, more in depth with social populism, economic populism, and national populism. So what is that, 48? Page 48. So, guys, notes helps like a bitch. I had these for a long time, and I have not made a video about this. So this will be the first one. Economic populism. So economic populism favors state intervention with economic labor and capitalist reformation. Tends to be social democrats, democratic socialists, libertarian socialists, all could be considered economic populists to some extent or another. So it's more of an idea, not necessarily an ideology. It's more of a method, actually, rather than an ideology. So they favor protectionist policies, tend to be. They oppose globalization. Markets are subordinate to the state. International trade, the goal being relative gains, emphasis on industrialization, Industry promotes self-sufficiency and political autonomy. So, while economic populism can be like Bernie Sanders, it can also be like Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was an economic populist in the way that he spoke, not necessarily in his policies, but in the way that he spoke, in the way that he presented himself, which is kind of what populism is all about. He was an economic populist. He advocated for economic gains and that sort of stuff, and he was very adamant about how well he did with regards to the economy. He didn't, but it doesn't really matter because he's appealing to the masses' sensibilities, and those sensibilities, however irrational they might be, are still technically their sensibilities. So the interesting thing is that both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are both economic populists on different sides of the liberal scale. Donald Trump being on the right and Bernie Sanders being on the left, or whatever way it is for you on the camera. So, social populism is anti-elitist, opposed to the establishment, speak for the common man. This is Bernie Sanders once again. This also is Bernie Sanders again. Economic populism, I guess I'll concede this kind of. I guess I think I may have misrepresented this, but economic populists can be either one technically, but it tends to be reserved for. No, mind, I'm right here. Sorry, I just have bad notes. So they oppose the common man, anti-capitalism, but also capitalists. Social populists tend to be sock-dems, dem-socks, pseudo-socialists would be a good example of social populists. They advocate for public works projects. They advocate for it at a local level. That's what sewer socialism is. Vaush, if you're watching this, that's what sewer socialism is. It's essentially a form of social democratic thing. It's not really revolutionary. It's reformist and it's shit. So there you go. They tend to be anti-militant, social politics, populists. They tend to support egalitarian policies, the emphasis to the popular frustrations of the working class for political gain. Once again, this could also apply for Donald Trump. The thing is, these ideologies of populism, which aren't really ideologies, can be applied in a lot of different areas. So, obviously, social populism could be applied technically in a conservative way or a non-conservative way with regards to LGBTQ rights, or the Black Lives Matter, that sort of thing could be seen as ways of inducing a populistic attitude or appealing to the masses' sensibilities. Once again, that's sort of the whole fucking jive. National populism tends to be very right-wing. Tend to be right-wing, but as you can tell, there's actually there was a recent election in South Africa, South America. I don't know where exactly. I know the socialist candidate was elected who was conservative, and I think he was somewhat national populistic, if I'm not mistaken. They tend to be anti-elitist. They speak to the common man, supposedly. They oppose opposition of strong controls. Opposition of strong controls. So I'm pretty sure they are strong against immigration as well. They are anti-environmental, tend to be support the welfare system, kind of. Neoliberalism, trying to destroy institutions of the nation primarily through unrestricted and mass migration. So wait, when I say national populist, I mean Donald Trump. Not just Donald Trump would be the perfect example. He's anti-immigration. Tries to speak to the common man. I mean, he did very well speaking to the common man. He got fucking like half the votes or whatever. Did he? I don't know. Opposition of strong controls. Opposition to immigration, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he supports the welfare state, but they might be opposed to the welfare state. It kind of depends. And these attributes, which I'm attributing to a lot of these ideologies, are not, in fact, entirely. I forgot what I was going to say, but just know I was saying something important, and I forgot it. So can't be that important, right? Let's see what else he has to say. Populism, already said that one. Accelerationism, interesting one. So accelerationism basically, go fast as you can. Do it quickly. Going to accelerating revolution. I myself consider myself somewhat of an accelerationist. As you can tell, I speak very quickly, so I'm not contradicting myself there. Maybe I should slow down a little bit. But something I've been told a lot of the time when I say I want revolution immediately is that people often tell me revolution doesn't come through accelerationism necessarily. It comes through when the material conditions materialize. I just think we can supplement that. I think we can supplement that with educational stuff, educational programs, teaching people about Marxism, that sort of stuff, teaching people theory, teaching people economics, teaching people how to debate, how to present themselves in public with regards to being populistic. Because populism, albeit sometimes negative, can be positive, especially with regards to political strategy. Let me just stand up real quick because I've been sitting down for quite a while. And let me actually adjust the camera as well. Oh, fuck. Ugh. So I can, stand, right? And somewhat. Okay. Fantastic. Put a corn to your witcher, oh valley of plenty, oh valley of plenty, oh whoa. Let's see here. What else does he have to? What else does he have to say? I might cover a few other ideologies in this one, but I think I'll save that for an actual video because I think that now I've done a few of them. I can do the ones I have not covered and the ones he won't cover. Woke Scolds, he covers that. Rainbow capitalism. I'll cover rainbow capitalism a little bit. Obviously, it's capitalism, but they put their logos in rainbow colors to pander and commodify the sexuality and that sort of stuff. You know, shitty capitalist things to do. Pink capitalism is progressive capitalism. Pink capitalism is related to rainbow capitalism and is often a term I hear more often than I hear rainbow capitalism. Rainbow capitalism is specifically LGBTQ plus kind of thing, although I guess you could use it in the same way you use pink capitalism. Pink capitalism being obviously the justification of imperialism and of capitalism and of pushing liberal ideology. It's actually a form of or a substrate maybe, or a kind of a product of neoliberalism, kind of. So pink capitalism ostensibly is, you know, justifying, like, so Donald Trump, for example, wanted to spread LGBTQ rights, supposedly, all around the world. That's an example of pink capitalism, or pink imperialism, if you will, because he wanted to use imperialist or economic and that sort of stuff to sanction people to give LGBTQ plus rights, and not for the right reasons either. Not for the reasons specifically of actually giving them those rights, but of actually of exploiting those countries, exploiting the systems of which those countries exist in, and that sort of thing. So that's what pink capitalism, rainbow capitalism is all about. Pink capitalism specifically is usually referring to imperialism and that sort of stuff, and is a liberal individualist ideology. If we want to talk about fascism, I would highly recommend you watch my video where I interviewed a Mussoliniite fascist. We're not on very good terms anymore, because I insulted him about some stuff. He was very childish. He's actually a former Trotskyist. He's pretty cool. You know, other than the fact that fascism has the same problems as liberalism and that sort of thing. But when you talk about fascism, it's easy to label everything you don't like as fascist. I call a lot of things liberal. The problem is I identify why it's liberal. Fascism is not Nazism. Unfortunately, fascism originates entirely from different roots from Nazism. Nazism and fascism are not the same thing. Do not conflate the same thing. It is not a substrate, or a flavor of fascism. Nazism does come from similar roots as fascism. However, the roots it takes its major philosophy from is anti-Semite parties, as Austrian anti-Semite parties, and he does go over that within that video. I will probably link that either up here, up there, wherever the fuck the fucking card will be. So, dude, am I in the picture now? Okay. Oh no, the video is gone. Oh no, it's back. It's back. Hello. Okay. Alrighty. Hopefully it doesn't get too fucked up. But that's ostensibly what that is. Anyway. Let's see what else. Let's see what else we have here we can explain. Left com. Let's see what he has to say. I want to see what he has to say actually, because I'm not too educated on leftcom actually, believe it or not. The extreme left or the ultra left, as they're called, is not something I've studied very often. Since I've gotten into Marxist-Leninism, since I've gotten into that sort of stuff, I have not covered ultra left. I mean, I never really did cover ultra leftism. I don't think. Maybe I have left communism, left comms, but left comms are kind of just like they're very by the book type of people, but not the good ones, not the good kind of books. They're very like odd. Propagandism, Poseidism, Fourth Theory, Delonism, Marxism, Autarchism, Austro-libertarianism, Chicago libertarianism, Hayekism, distributionism, libertarianism, the Dark Enlightenment, Hoaxism, Brooks, communism, no, right accelerationism. Actually, do I have accelerationism normally? We can talk about white accelerationism, I guess. So 26, 27, I probably don't have that much on this because it's not that complicated of a topic. It just basically just everything going right very fast. I guess you could consider paleoconservatives to be right accelerationists, maybe, though they don't really do praxis, which is kind of the definition, not necessarily definition, but the key identifying factor of accelerationists. For example, Poseidists, for example, or nuclear accelerationists, if you will. I guess I can call them that, but they want to. They're Trotskyists who basically want to nuclearize the world. Want to drop a bunch of nukes, and they think that space aliens, will come and pick them up. There's also some weird shit with dolphins, but I don't know about that part. Oh, actually, it's probably have to do with. Actually, I think I know what they're talking about. I think they're talking about like the experiments of this one guy and this woman who had. It was the story of the woman who had sex with dolphins, who would like jack off the dolphin. But it was obviously more than that. She did research on trying to communicate and teach them language and teach that dolphin English. So I think they think that since they can speak to us, maybe they'll join us on the journey from when the aliens come to rescue us after we go through a nuclear annihilation. So basically, they would want to accelerate to nuclear annihilation, fuck up power plants, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what they would want to do. Although it's a lot harder to fuck up a power plant than you would think. It's not that easy to just Chernobyl anymore, because it's very actually nuclear power plants are very safe and a very effective way of getting energy and stuff, and also, I mean, security and shit and all that kind of stuff. And since Chernobyl, there's just a just rapid and just really bad fear of nuclear energy, which is unfounded, by the way. Nuclear energy is actually extremely safe, I'm pretty sure. And just the fact that there was one incident in Chernobyl basically ruled it out, which actually shows, to some extent or another, how the market doesn't always favor the most innovative technologies. Ecofascism. So ecofascism is more of the is much more racialist than Mussolini fascism is, because Mussolini fascism is not necessarily racialist. And I say racialist to mean racialist. Let's look up racialist for a second. Racialist. Oh, rally of plenty. Racialism. Discriminatory or abusive behavior towards members of the race. Yeah, it's racialist to some extent or other. But ecofascism is different than regular fascism because it's not really that fascist necessarily. Fascists consider themselves, and all fascists who are not Nazis and who are not Mussolini, not non-Mussolini fascists or fascists, if you will. Who don't actually take anything from fascist philosophy and just want to be edgy and are Nazis and that sort of thing. Obviously, we've differentiated them from each other, and the regular fascists are not necessarily racialists. However, they have their issues and that sort of thing. But I'm gonna get fucked for this. But anyway, for being historically accurate, I get fucked. That's fantastic. I get real nice with it. But eco-fascists believe in eugenics, that sort of things. That's gonna be your eco-fascists. They believe in killing minorities, basically, to stop them from populating, from stopping them from polluting stuff, and that sort of thing. Very eugenicist and that sort of stuff. However, most fascists, mostly fascists, will tell you they are eco-fascists, because all fascists are eco-fascists in the sense that they are environmentally friendly. Most fascists want to help the environment, believe it or not. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you're probably not as educated or knowledgeable on fascism as I've been educated. You might be like, oh, well, you learned it from the source, and therefore don't know what you're talking about, which is basically what you're going to say if you say, oh, you're biased. No, I'm not. I have my reservations with fascism, particularly with the fact that it's a hegemonic political ideology, which is based upon and has its roots in liberal philosophy and vapid individualism, as Mussolini himself seemed to, what's it called? Romanticize the idea of the Roman Republic and the Roman. I don't think it was Roman. I think it was the Roman Republic. But either way, the ideas of a lot of America's policies came out of Rome, Greece, and that Mediterranean area, of which Mussolini was very heavily influenced, especially with regards to his imperialistic tendencies. That's a good example of how you actually explain fascism in a very advanced way. You're not going to hear any of this explained to you in anything other than probably this video. You're going to